Hi. So basically, in a completely expected turn of events, I forgot my microphone. Shocker. So if you're wondering why my voice sounds even more abysmal than it usually does, then just know this entire thing is recorded on my iPhone in front of a pop filter. It is also definitely worth noting that I am recording this on a cliff for reasons. Don't ask about the cliff. I'm not going to show you the cliff, not unless you like. Ah, yeah. Oh, that is sketch. Yeah, this is how the pros do it, I'm pretty sure. Oh my goodness, it's the ocean. What am I doing with my life? Huh? What am I doing with my life? Why am I like this? Oh gosh, that's getting quite close. I promise this intro makes sense, please don't click off. So I thought it would be cool and funny that while I'm on this trip, I find a simple plug-and-play mic that I can put into my Mac and record some stuff from time to time to help make sure my channel doesn't join the Queen and Pope Francis. And true to form, I forgot it. I remembered to bring the pop filter, just not the microphone itself. From that intro alone, you've probably figured out by now that I'm both a nerd and also a tinkerer. I like to tinker with stuff and technology. And I realize that sounds terrible without context. Please, for the love of all things, please don't clip that. A while ago, I was successfully able to recover my first daily driven virus machine. This Dell Inspiron 3201 from like 2011. It wasn't really used that much outside of low quality Roblox games and Microsoft Word, and that's because I was finally able to recover the spec sheet on it. And let's just say, if you're on a Chromebook right now, this is the first and only time in your life you're allowed to officially flex. Let me just quickly run down what these numbers mean. Bad, slow, bad, mediocre, really slow, actually impressively slow, and oh my lord, I would rather shoot myself in the head and watch paint dry than wait for this. For reference, the first time Roblox was ever installed on this thing, the battery exploded and it took us another year or so for us to even give a damn about the machine's existence. I promise you my hands aren't this red in real life. Do not question this, I'm not copying off of dank pods, I just need this here. It's an expensive coaster. Now, a normal person would probably discard the thing as e-waste or use it as a simple Google browser hand-me-down type thing. But if there's one thing my friends, if I had any, would never describe me as, it's both happy and joyful. Oh, and normal is there too, I guess. Instead, this overly generic piece of definitely legally acquired Adobe property, no, there wasn't actually, I double-checked, is instead in the hands of this autistic as hell dumbass who's watched way too many Linus drop tip videos in the past few days and isn't exactly the safest guy to be around when he's equipped with a screwdriver. My first initial thought was being, if the thing still worked in the first place, for on-the-go stuff, I guess. That possibility instantly shattered the moment I heard its desperate cries for help and wanting to end its miserable existence. Yep, she's loud. After a few days of sieving through the world's quietest funk music, I was able to find the problem. The laptop couldn't detect any DC voltage ratings properly, and absolutely refused to hold a charge. Without a doubt, the battery had once again killed itself. But the voltage detection problem still remained quite a mystery, which became evidently clear after running it through a couple technicians. And by technicians, I mean people who are smarter than me, who concluded that it could be anything from a chip error to a motherboard breaking error. So instead of randomly ordering replacement parts for a laptop that could probably pass as a jet turbine the second PowerPoint is open, let's move over to plan B, recovering what we do know still works, in which this case is the storage drive, the RAM, and most notably, the screen. The beginning of the laptop autopsy takes place at the 9 easy-to-access screws at the bottom. Don't flex on Mac users just yet, because we got those too. Upon opening her up, we're instantly greeted by the most amount of dust I've ever had the pleasure of seeing with my own two eyes at the bottom of the panel. As much as this seems like a negative at first, this is actually quite an impressive sign, because this shows that this laptop is actually quite dust resistant, unlike its brother of pure sadness gaming variants, which seem to suffer from absolutely screen syndrome as soon as it gets one speck of dust in its hinges. True story. Happened to my brother way too many times. Don't want to talk about it. Thanks, Dell. Oh, well, that is dusty. Removing the armada of dust, which should probably pass as a panel itself, completely unveils the queen of generic herself. There is just absolutely nothing interesting going on here. Fahrenheit is in brackets. For once, we're not the minority. Let's go! Everything is compact as expected, with the battery taking up about 45% of the space inside. Big stick of RAM in the middle that none of the other laptops in the house can use because it's DDR3 and frickin' useless. A huge SATA SSD instead of a much more appropriately sized NVMe M.2, because who needs convenience and speed when you've got one of the most pathetic coolers I've ever seen yet? Guys, I get this chip is only going to run games and programs at like slideshow performance, but you could have at least tried a little more. The safest thing to do in a laptop autopsy or repair is to always remove the battery first in case the machine still holds a charge. I highly doubt this piece of garbage is still holding any watts, but better to be safe than freaking dead. This battery has been replaced before. I should probably mention that. It looks like the technician has lost me a few screws. Next, I removed the cooler thing, thinking, surely this can't be that bad, right? It somehow gets worse. So much worse. Oh, never mind, that was a little bit too easy. What's that? Oh my gosh. Okay, well, there's not a lot of thermal paste covering the actual important part of the CPU, which is a little bit concerning. Oh, and there's a lot of dust in that small fan. When turning over to look at the copper heat die, there was practically next to no thermal conduct on the silicon of the chip. I mean, look at this. There's paste around it, but not on the die itself. The silicon is the thing making the heat, which is like the whole point of thermal compounds. For those who have no idea what I'm talking about, it's like you having a burn on your arm, the medics reaching to apply ice, and instead of laying the ice on the burn, they lay it in a circle around it instead. I gotta drop this analogy, this is so bad. The CPU is also soldered onto the motherboard, which is a big sad. Removing the RAM was fairly straightforward, and the storage drive was also a few screws away from getting completely cyberbullied. The DDR3! Let's go, DDR3! Made in China. Oh my gosh, that's blurry. Made in China. Yep, this is the entire RAM. 4 gigs. Put that away. Okay, now that the real fans are somehow still here, let's continue with. Wait, 128 gigabyte SSD, and it's this big. Smagsmum, what are you doing? What are you doing, you clowns? Feel free to unsubscribe at any time. Then it just came down to removing the motherboard. Starting on the side with the Wi-Fi card, I still have this card. I don't really know what to do with it. Removing the little sensor board on the keyboard. It's strange to think that a whole circuitry system can just be this. And that looks disgusting. Ew. Shut up, me from the past. Stop pretending like people care what you have to say. And shut up, birds, I'm making. And then we end this side off with the really terrible window speakers and the trackpad, apparently. Look, if enough people bother me about this, I will try and figure out a way to get this working on my main PC, okay? After playing around for a bit with Dell's best build quality, it's time to rip off the back of the screen to be greeted with wires, and what has probably got to be the least like foam I think I've ever seen in my life. Look, it's the thought that counts, okay? They're trying their best. After taking a quick look at Google's best smartphone camera, we're greeted with this tag, which is essential and going to help us turn this laptop monitor into a display for the PC. After all that autopsy, this is the thing that we want the most. Essentially, we're turning this laptop display into a display for our main PC, which we're going to do in the next episode, so make sure to subscribe. So what we have is this little Raspberry Pi looking thing, except it isn't a Raspberry Pi at all. This is a controller board, which basically plugs it to the back of our screen and gives it a brain. So instead of directly getting instructions from the laptop's motherboard itself, we can use this to make the screen think it's a normal monitor, and plugging the board into our computer and make it display anything we want. And whilst the screen isn't that big, it actually turns out to be extremely helpful to me, and I'll explain why later. So now that the autopsy is done, we can begin the conversion. And with that, we got all of these delicious mangled nerdy spaghetti. The reason those numbers on the back of the display were helpful was because they tell us what kind of ribbon cable we need. If you're following this along at home for some reason, number one, why? But number two, once you've found those numbers, you simply plug them into your search bar and maybe add controller board at the end. And from there on out, it's just pick your poison. And no, don't think you can come sue me if you get scammed. The best thing you can do is cyberbully. Now we just need to give it a 12 volt AC to DC adapter, and finally we can plug this into our computer. It's in a really awkward position right now because I'm borrowing whether my current mod is HDMI. Surprisingly, this thing actually still works, and holy hell, Dell, can we please get some screen with that bezel? Please don't mind that the language is foreign. It didn't take long for me to change it back to English. From there on out, it's pretty much up to us to pretty it up a bit. I think it would look nice to put it back in its original case, kind of. From the front, it doesn't look too bad. It actually serves as a pretty convenient portable monitor. Now, there's 3 perks that I can think of at least to having this sort of screen. The last one is by far my favorite. Obviously, number one is the fact that this is actually a really portable monitor, which can either be not helpful at all to some people or really useful to others. For me personally, I've only used this as a portable display like twice. Number two is that the display can actually be powered by the system itself. The power supply of the PC would serve as the brick of the cable, and depending on your board, the little Molex connector of the power supply might actually serve the exact output needed for the controller board. 12 volt DC, which means you could theoretically wire your controller board to your power supply, saving an extra power socket. That's all cool and smart. It's time to sound dumb again, because most notably for me, is that you can dedicate this small display to your video editing software's timeline or other panels, leaving the big primary display for more important things like the preview window if you're video editing modules if you're doing 3D work, and other kinds of cool stuff like that, which is something that has really come in handy for catching small little details for me and help turning this unorganized window into an efficient and professional mess. So there you have it. Crap top then versus crap top now. Oh, that and my PC is now officially 128 gigabytes richer than it was before. And yes, if I wanted to, I could theoretically dedicate this entire drive to one copy of Sea of Thieves. But no, there's an entire history book worth of Minecraft maps on here just waiting to be reopened. Wow, this absolutely sucks. I don't know, would any of you clowns want to see these sometime?